Already packing, come with me. I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions. We'll get away, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's go, let's be free with me. Be free. Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche. We're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free.
Good evening, everyone. It's Jim here at Tutor2, and a very warm welcome to the third in our series of live stream study sessions to support GCSE Sociology students this term. And I've got a focus this term on the Crime and Deviance topic. So this is the third. We've done two sessions here on this regular slot, 5:30 on a Monday, and I'm absolutely delighted that I'm joined tonight by two familiar faces. We've got Sarah in the middle and Vicky on the right hand side. A little pleasant wave.
Hi.
Great to see you. We'll kick off just in a few seconds time, but for those of you who are new to this format, to our live stream, it's a little bit of housekeeping. If you're joining us live, we're live on YouTube, on Facebook, LinkedIn, I don't know, everywhere, I guess. Maybe Channel 4. And if you're with us live, you can use the live chat window or the comments box on social media to participate, maybe to have a go at some of the questions, type your answers in, ask a question, or whatever you'd like to do that's connected to the topic under focus tonight. The session's going to last about 30 minutes or so. We'll cover some content as well, but don't worry, don't write it all down, because as soon as this session is finished, we'll provide you the link to the slides, the PowerPoint that you can download and maybe either print off or add some of the content to your folders and to your notes. If you're watching us on catch up and replay, unfortunately you don't get to participate in the live chat, but of course you do get the advantage of having a bit more time, maybe to pause the video and to think about the questions and then start the video again to see how you got on with the various activities. It looks like we've got about 5 or 6 activities tonight with a bit of key content as well and some exam gold. It's a packed session. Vicky, I think you're going to kick us off.
Yes, Thank you, Jim. So, yeah, like we said, welcome to our third live stream. We're looking at crime and deviance. Today, we're looking at behind criminal and deviant behaviour. So, first of all, this afternoon, Sarah's going to kick you off with a 60-second challenge.
Good luck, everyone.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We're starting off with a 60-second challenge on white-collar crime. So remember, white-collar crime is very different to our street crime, our working-class crime, and white-collar crime is generally fueled by greed, which is argued by some sociologists that is a kind of natural byproduct of the capitalist society that we live in. So we can call it a criminogenic system. So capitalism is criminogenic. So we've got 5 different key terms here for you to match up. So we have 60 seconds on the clock. Have a go. Which one goes with which term? You can just put the letter and the number in the chat. Over halfway through your time now. There we go. That's your 60 seconds up. So how did you get on? I can see some good answers.
I think we've lost Sarah there. Let's hang on, folks. We'll see whether we can get the team back. Vicky, are you able to take us through these answers to the 60-second challenge? Great stuff. Do you want to unmute yourself and we'll go through the answers?
On the screen, we have different white-collar crimes here. We have fraud, a crime in which somebody tricks someone else into get unfair or unlawful gain. So a good way of making money. Well, not a good way. It's obviously an illegal way, but it is a way of making money. Bribery, quite often linked to the ruling classes, the act of offering someone money or something valuable in order to persuade them to do something for you or to keep quiet if they've found out that you have done something that you shouldn't. We have corruption, the misuse of public power for private gain. Okay, again, we often hear about corrupt governments, people in power doing things that they shouldn't. We then have identity theft, so the illegal use of someone's personal information in order to obtain money or credit. And this is something that has grown in I guess popularity, but that's not really the right word, but it definitely is a crime that has grown, and that's largely due to obviously the internet. And forgery, producing a fake document, signature, banknote, or work of art in order to deceive somebody. So producing fake money, for example, would be an example of forgery. Okay, so can we have the next slide up, please, Jim? So this evening, we are looking at the following things. We're looking at perspectives on factors affecting crime and deviance. So we're going to talk you through the functionalist perspective, the new right perspective, Marxism. We're going to think about feminism. We're going to think about interactionists. We're going to then have a look at delinquent subcultures in a little bit more detail. And then we are going to talk about media and crime, media as a cause of crime, but also the idea of deviancy amplification. And then we're going to pop some exam gold towards the end as well. Excellent. Thank you very much, Jim. So we're going to start off with a functionalist perspective. Okay, well, hopefully we all remember that functionalism is a consensus view. So functionalists like Durkheim said that crime was actually an inevitable part of society. He talked about the idea of collective sentiment, and we've come across that before, the idea of shared values of what's right or wrong. But he says that not everybody is going to buy into these. Some people will deviate from these norms and beliefs that the rest of us share. And he said that a certain amount of crime is normal and it's necessary, and that it acts as a safety valve, providing a relatively harmless way to express their discontent. Although obviously this is very much dependent on that seriousness of the crime. He also said it serves as a warning device to show us that certain aspects of society are malfunctioning, so we can then fix this problem. Another functionalist, Robert Merton, and we talked about him previously, observed American culture and the idea of that American dream, which he said puts pressure on people to achieve material success, for example, a nice house, good career, etc. And when they struggle, this places a strain on society. We covered this in lots of detail in our first live stream on the social structure of crime and deviance, which you'll be able to find on the 2to You demand page. Jim, can we have the slide up, please? Excellent. So we are now going to have a look at the new right perspectives. Now, the new right sociologists are a very traditional bunch. They've got a really traditional view of society, and they blame crime on the culture of poverty. So a very prominent new right sociologist is Charles Murray. He believes that those living in poverty have their own way of life, when he sort of talks about it as being a criminal subculture, where criminal behaviour such as stealing from each other is just seen as normal. He links this to the decline of the nuclear family, arguing that lone parent families cause issues for society, and in particular, boys growing up without fathers to act as a role model, which might help them stop getting involved in antisocial behaviour and embracing a life of crime. Okay, Jim, can we have the next one up, please? So we're now going to have a look at the Marxist perspective. We already talked about Marxism a little bit just a moment ago, because obviously the white-collar crime is something that Marxists talk about quite a lot. So they believe that crime happens because of capitalism. The ruling class need that workforce that's willing to work hard to make the rich even richer than they already are. So they convince the working classes that they need to buy lots of nice things through the power of advertising, which we call consumerism, such as constantly evolving technology. And we are told that we need the latest product, which makes people greedy, and it makes people want more than they can actually afford. So Marxists believe that humans are not naturally greedy and selfish, and that capitalism makes them that way. And when some people can't get the goods that they want, they will inevitably turn to crime. And mainly, these are people that are at the bottom of that pile. So people that are living mostly in poverty. Okay, Jim, can we have the next one up, please? Super. So we have the feminist perspective up on your screen now. So feminists believe that when women do commit crime, it is often out of desperate measures, which are often linked to poverty. Now, we do know that women tend to commit less crime, and we covered this quite a lot in our social control session last week. Women are more likely to live in poverty than men. Sometimes that's due to giving up work to look after elderly parents or being the main carers for their children. It might be that they're having to work part-time around those domestic responsibilities that they have. It does mean that their income is significantly lower. So we also then need to sort of factor in the gender pay gap. Women often turn to crime out of desperation. And the higher levels of poverty that we're talking about here may also cause women to be victims of crime, such as domestic violence, which is often linked to the stresses of poverty. And in in a very few cases, it might cause women to be drawn into things like prostitution out of desperation. Again, obviously a criminal act there. Okay, Jim, can we have our last one up, please? So we have the interactionist perspective. Now, I'm not going to talk about this in much detail because we covered this in lots and lots of detail in our very first live stream, which you can watch on the 2to You catch-up page. But sociologists like Howard Becker believe that labels that people receive affects whether someone behaves in a criminal or a deviant way. And he talks about the self-fulfilling prophecy leading to something called master status and that deviant career. Okay, and like I said, we've covered this one in detail, so you can go back and you can watch that one on the 2to You homepage. Jim, can we have the quiz up for this one? So we're going to have a few true or false questions coming up on the screen for you, all based on what we have just talked about. So hopefully you've done true or false with this before, all you need to do is pop a T or an F in the chat window to let me know whether you think the statement on the board on the screen is true or false. So our first one is Functionalist Durkheim claimed that crime is inevitable and part of a healthy society. So I'm going to give you a couple of moments just to pop in the chat window whether you think this is true or false. Okay. What do we think? Does he believe, or did he believe, that crime is inevitable and part of a healthy society? Good. We've got some good responses coming through. Everybody's in agreement here. So, Jim, can we have the answer up, please? Excellent. So it is true. It is an inevitable and part of a healthy society. Although Functionalists did believe, obviously, this was within context. You obviously don't want crime getting out of control. Second one up, please. So new right sociologist Charles Murray blames crime on absent fathers. So we just talked about this. Is that true or false? I'll just give you a moment. Okay, let's have a look at the answer. So it is true. New right sociologists like Charles Murray blame crime on absent fathers, along with lots of other factors there. Okay, our third true or false statement is Marxists believe that humans are naturally greedy, and this is what drives our obsession with consumerism. Is this true or false? What do we think? So again, I'll just give you a couple of moments to get your answers into the chat window. So do Marxists believe that humans are naturally greedy? Okay, well done. Can we have the answer on the screen, please, Jim? Good. They believe it is false. Okay, we are not naturally greedy. We are just programmed by advertising linked to the ruling classes controlling the media and all those sorts of things that Marxists will talk about to make us believe that we need constantly to buy things. That obsession with consumerism. Okay, number 4, please. Feminists believe that poverty draws women into criminal behaviour. True or false? Okay, so just give you a moment. So is it poverty drawing women into criminal behaviour? Okay, again, well done. Okay, let's have a look at the answer on the screen. Good, true, that one is true. And our last one is interactionists believe that labels have no relevance to deviant behaviour. So interactionists believe that labels have no relevance to deviant behaviour. Is that true or false? Okay, what do we think? Right, well done. Some good answers coming through. Let's have that one up on the screen. It is false. They believe that labels have lots of relevance to all sorts of behaviour. We've covered interactionism with crime, but you will have studied interactionism in the classroom and the idea of the self-fulfilling prophecy. What people believe is generally what people will achieve. Okay, well done. Some really good answers here. I'm hoping to hand over to Sarah now for
Yep, I'm here.
discuss. Perfect.
Sorry, I did drop out before, but I made it back in time to enjoy that brilliant true or false. So we're going to have a look at Albert Cohen's theories on delinquent subcultures. And this is a really helpful criticism of Merton's strain theory, because Cohen believed something quite different was kind of causing and acting as this motivation for crime. So he used this idea of a subculture and really perceiving crime as a group behavior, and then realizing that obviously there are other subcultures out there, as you'll know from studying education, but that some subcultures are criminal or delinquent, and they therefore have a set of values within that subculture that are seen as wrong by others. And we've got some key terms that are used for our kind of vocabulary for talking about this topic. We've got subculture being this small group in society with its own norms and values. Delinquency, and we often hear the word delinquency linked to juvenile delinquents, so talking about young people, but delinquency can apply at any age. So it's often linked to youth, but it also is anyone who breaks the law or generally is seen as unacceptable in their behaviour. And then we have status frustration. And this is a really useful explanation because it's the idea that certain people in society, particularly those who are marginalised for various reasons, have an anger at society or a dissatisfaction at their very position in society. And therefore, they're frustrated literally with their status. So what Cohen is telling us about delinquent subcultures is that these groups of people, these subcultures, reject the value consensus within society. They reject the social norms and values that we are all kind of supposed to be buying into. And it becomes the norm within that subculture to be dishonest, to be violent, to steal, to bully or treat people badly or, harass people and make them uncomfortable. So This is possibly because they would be rewarded with money or material things for taking part in that crime. It may be that they have access to expensive goods, by taking part in these activities, but it might also be a higher status within the subculture group. So it may be people who are unlikely to achieve that higher status in society simply through working hard because of various forms of marginalisation and the stratification of society. But within these subcultures, they can actually be rewarded for their merits and for their hard work within the group. And there we go. So we are going to have a lovely recall activity so we can retrieve some of that knowledge that we just looked at. And this is a great one to come back and revisit using the replay over and over again. So if we're going to look at Albert Cohen and delinquent subcultures, as we've just seen at the delivery for, and your job is to fill in the missing words. So we're going to mend the gap by filling in the missing words. So I'll give you a few moments to have a think about, and if you're watching this on replay, you might want to press pause here. And if you're with us live, just jot those down. In the chat, you can use numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if you want to indicate which one, or you can put all your responses in together into one message. And I'll give you a couple of moments to think about that, and then we'll have a look at the answers in a minute. So we've got, which class-dominated school system do these working class boys feel out of place in? What do they have and lack the skills to achieve? What do they suffer from? So we've got lovely key terms in there. And I think it's about time to have a look at the answers. Brilliant. Thanks, Jim. So we've got working class boys feel out of place in the middle class dominated school system. So we've got that kind of clash of habitus that can lead to alienation. They have cultural deprivation. So we're thinking about attitudes and values from home that have affected their outlook, and therefore they lack the skills to achieve by a kind of more normal means. They feel at the bottom of the official status hierarchy, therefore they suffer from status frustration, and they're unable to adjust to that low social status, so they are seeking status elsewhere. These boys resolve their frustration by rejecting mainstream middle class values, so they're rejecting one set of values and they're adopting another, and they turn instead to other boys in the same situation, forming and joining this delinquent subculture, where they do receive status. So there's lots of lovely vocabulary there for you to use when you're developing your exam responses.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sarah. So the last bit of content that we're going to look at this afternoon is thinking about the media and what role it plays in causing crime. So firstly, we're going to think about it in the idea of causing crime. And then I said that we were going to talk about deviancy amplification linked to the media as well. So lots of sociologists are interested in the role that media plays with crime, and the media itself is a cause of crime. And this is known as the hypodermic syringe model. So you might have come across this before, where the media sends messages to the audience that directly and passively influence them. For example, the potential influence the media has on violent behaviour. This is a good sort of example that comes up time and time again when we're talking about criminal behaviour. So the idea that violence is learned behaviour, and children in particular who are exposed to violent images in the media might learn that such behaviour is normal, and they might act it out in real life. And there were some really high profile and shocking public cases that seem to be able to back this up, such as the really shocking and tragic murder of 2-year-old Jamie Bolger back in the 1990s, who was killed by two 10-year-old boys who had watched violent films beforehand. Or the Columbine the Columbine shootings at Columbine High School, big massacre in the USA where the killers had listened to violent song lyrics, again, all linked to causing that crime. It's sort of referred to throughout both of those trials. The media violence can lead to this idea of desensitization, where people become less shocked by that violence and therefore possibly more likely to employ it themselves. However, many sociologists will argue that actually the majority of us will watch violent films or play violent video games and don't go on to commit crime. So while it might influence behaviour, it is not the sole cause of crime. Jim, can I have the next slide up, please? So linked to this is the idea of media and deviancy amplification. Again, hopefully you've come across this term before. So we have a quote on the screen. So Stanley Cohen, so a famous sociologist, said that moral panics occur when condition, episode, person, or group of people emerges to become defined as a threat to societal values and interests. And he believes the media plays a really important role in enforcing moral panics. And we've talked about these before. So the idea of a moral panic where something suddenly becomes something that we're all afraid of, maybe with not much reason to be. And he says that this happens just by reporting the news. So when the media sensationalizes or exaggerates a crime, this can lead to the idea of a climate of fear. But in some cases, the more people hear about that crime, the more they could be encouraged to copy that behaviour, particularly if it's linked to a particular subculture, like the mods and rockers of the 1960s that you might have studied lessons before, who became known as folk devils. So this is a term, again, you've possibly come across, the idea of outsiders, scapegoats for society's problems. And the idea of moral panics and folk devils are closely linked to labelling and self-fulfilling prophecies. So the UK media are focused on all sorts, so migrants being responsible for the UK's problems, terrorism, even the killer clown epidemic from a few years back. A really good example of this, in that whole idea of the sort of the copycat behaviour, the climate of fear, would be the 2011 riots after the shooting of Mark Dougan by the police in London. Again, a case that perhaps you've looked at in your sociology lessons. A peaceful vigil in his memory escalated quickly into a riot, which was then reported on 24-hour news, and young gang members were identified quite clearly. And this led to a bit of a moral panic. The news outlets were showing us feral, lawless young people with no respect for the community or the police running riots on the streets of London, which kind of, they focus on things like looting and violence. And this led to a bit of a snowball effect of encouraging other people to join in, not just in London, but right across the country in various towns and cities. So as a result, this led to even more sensationalist reporting, and people in other towns across the country probably wouldn't have rioted at all if it wasn't for that media coverage. The same could be said for the killer clown craze as well. This happened in, I think it was 2016. Most people only joined in because they had seen those reports of previous incidents. So really interesting concept there, the idea of the media sort of making things worse just by doing what we expect the media to do, i.e. reporting the news. Jim, can we have the next slide up, please? Excellent. So we're going to have a quick 10-second countdown. We've got 4 of these. You've got 10 seconds to answer the question on the screen. Obviously, you can pop the answer in the chat window. If you're watching later, then you can give yourself a little bit more time if you need to, but hopefully you won't. So the first answer, this is linked to all of the things that I've just been discussing. What is the name of the model that suggests the audience receives media messages and is directly influenced by them? So if we can have 10 seconds on the clock, please.
Liftoff will start in T-minus 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
Let's have a look and see if you are correct. The hypodermic model. Well done. Okay, second question on the screen, please. So what phrase did Stan Cohen coin to describe what happens when a group of people emerge as a threat to society? Again, we've just looked at this. 10 seconds on the screen, please, Jim.
Liftoff will start in T-minus 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
Okay, let's have a look at the correct answer. Good, it is the idea of the moral panic. Well done if you got that correct. Okay, our third question. What do we call it when the media reinforces moral panic through sensationalist reporting? Okay, we've just talked about this.
T-minus 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
Okay, let's have a look at the answer. It is deviancy amplification. So if you got that correct, well done. So our last 10-second countdown challenge is, what does the term folk devils mean? Again, we have just talked about these in the last couple of slides.
Liftoff will start in T-minus 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
Okay, let's have a look at the correct answer. A group of people who are being scapegoated for society's problems. Again, well done if you got that correct. Okay, I'm going to hand back over to Sarah now for a bit of exam practice, and then we have one more quick quiz afterwards.
Thanks, Vicky. We are going to have a look at an example exam question, a 4-marker, and we're going to provide some advice and tips on really how to maximise those scores and how to really perfect your technique. So the question we've got here, 4-marker, describe one way that new right sociologists would argue that inadequate socialisation is a cause of deviant and criminal behaviour. So we're looking for one way here. So you might like to have it sort of jot down what you think you would put if you were faced with that question. And then in a second, we will have a look at some suggested responses, and we'll talk about some exam gold, the tips, the things you really want to make sure of in order to get the best possible marks in this question. So take a moment. This is a great point to pause if you're watching on replay. Take a moment to think about what you would put down for this 4-mark question. Okay, can we have a look at the suggested responses, please? Wonderful. So think about what is the new right perspective. So what we want to do here is we really want to get across that we understand the new right perspective through the answer. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to write a definition of it, but you really need to get it across in that one way that you choose to develop. Think about the New Right's views on poverty and subcultures. Vicky was talking about the London riots just now. The New Right had a lot to say after those London riots had occurred. They blamed a lot of what had happened. They blamed young people rioting, not on the reasons or what had caused and what had escalated. In order for those riots to kind of spark and then really take off. But they focus more on lack of socialisation. Melanie Phillips, one of our famous New Right thinkers, talked a lot about children from single parent families and how the New Right believe that really affects socialisation. So think about the views on lone parent families. Think about what the New Right say about absentee fathers, and think about what the New Right say not just about poverty, but about norms and values and subcultures. And if you're thinking about all of those features, then your knowledge will shine through in your answer. So you're choosing one way, one reason, and you're developing that fully and making sure that you stay focused on the one you've chosen rather than adding, we don't want that shopping list answer of lots and lots of reasons. We want one reason that is nicely developed. So let's have a look at some exam gold, please. If you write more than one reason, you won't be credited for it. So it's, absolutely like wasting your time, because obviously the opportunity cost is that you won't then have the time to develop the one reason that you've chosen. The examiner wants to see that you understand these traditional or small c conservative values of New Right sociologists or New Right thinkers. You need to pick one reason. So either choose subcultures or choose poverty or choose socialization. And remember, the New Right believe that stealing can become a way of life. So we are talking about a form of subculture here. Or pick lone parent families, or pick lone parent families and link it in with the lack of role models, or pick the lack of role models as your point and develop that. So we're looking there to pick that point and really develop it, showing all of that knowledge and understanding so that your brilliant sociological understanding really shines through as you develop that reason that you've chosen. And then it's probably a good idea, if you're watching on replay, to pause this now and have a go at writing that 4 marker in full. And when you've done that, it's over to Vicky for a final activity.
Thank you very much. Some brilliant exam advice there. And yeah, like Sarah said, pause and have a go at it now while it's still fresh in your mind. And obviously you can come back to altered vowels. So we've come across altered vowels before. We use it a lot. If you've joined us in previous sessions, you will know what to do. So you have key phrases that will come up on the screen. You have got to just work out what they should be. The vowels have all been changed to a different letter. Again, they are all to do with something that we have covered this evening. So our first one is on the screen for you. I'm going to give you a few moments. If you are watching on replay, you can obviously pause and give yourself as much time as you need. So what do we think this key phrase might be? Hopefully, the Q in the middle of the first word might be a little bit of a help. The first word is not too tricky. I'll just give you a couple of moments to get some ideas down the chat window. Don't worry if you haven't quite got the spelling of the first word correct. It's a tricky one. Okay, well done. Some good answers coming through. Jim, can we have the correct one? Yep, it's the delinquent subculture that we were just talking about with Albert Cohen's work, looking at delinquent subcultures. Okay, so a link to those delinquent subcultures, we have our next key phrase. What do we think this one is? Again, pop your guess into the chat window. I'll give you just a couple of moments. So he talked about boys suffering from this in particular. Okay, well done. Some good answers coming through. Jim, can we have the correct answer on the screen, please? Excellent. It is status frustration. Well done. Okay, our next one. Okay, so this was linked to what we were talking about from the new right perspective, particularly Charles Murray and some of his views. What do we think this one might be? I think this one looks a little bit easier than the last two. So I'll give you a couple of moments to get your guesses into the chat window. Again, if you're watching later, you can obviously pause and give yourself a little bit more time. Okay, well done. Correct answers are coming through. So can we have that up? So it's a culture of poverty. Super. Next one, please. Okay. This one I think is a little bit more tricky. You might want to work from the back of the word. So what do we think this one might be? Again, it is a word that we have talked about in this session today. This one is from the Marxist perspective, if that's just to give you a little bit of a clue. So what do you think this one might be? Okay, just give you one more moment. Excellent, we've got some correct answers coming through. Well done, it is consumerism, and I think we have one final one. Okay, so linked to consumerism. Hopefully this one is nice and easy. Okay, this should be, right on the tip of your tongue. It's to do with Marxism. It's a really important concept. It should be a nice, easy one to finish off with. Okay, just give you a couple of moments. Okay, well done. Nice and easy. Some good answers coming through. It is capitalism. Thank you very much. That's our last one. Well done for those of you that have joined in this evening and have watched live. And obviously, hopefully, if you're watching on replay at home, this is a useful session to you. We've gone through quite a lot of content. We've tested you with quite a few little games. And obviously, we've given you some exam gold as well. If you need any more support with your GCSE work on crime and deviance, there are lots and lots of resources on the Tutor2U website. You can follow the QR code that's on the screen. There are some good revision cards. There's a crime student workbook. These are all worth having a look at. But yeah, thank you very, very much, and hopefully you will join us next week.
Fantastic. Yes, absolutely right. I mean, that student workbook, The Crime, it's absolute gold dust if you are getting ready for your AQA GCSE Sociology assessments or mocks and even the real exams in the summer. Fantastic resource. The question cards are literally a whole pack of all the different types of questions you could get, even better with the answers. on the back, but have a go at some of those as well. Fantastic stuff. Huge thanks to Sarah and to Vicky for packing in another content-filled session. Fantastic stuff on Crime and Deviance. It's a regular slot here at Monday, 5:30, so look out on the tutordu.net/live website to catch the upcoming sessions, but also if you want to go back over all the previous sessions, the ones this term and the ones we've done earlier in this year, you can download the PowerPoints, watch the videos. We've covered a whole load of stuff, probably the whole of the GCSE Sociology specification over the last, whatever it is, 15 or 20 sessions we've done, but still more to come. So once again, many thanks for joining us. We look forward to catching you next week. So cheers.
Bye.
Well done, everyone. Bye.
Bye.